Hello, everyone. This is Greg. I'm extending my greetings from Hong Kong. And I'm originally from Taiwan, but I've been based in Hong Kong for a couple of years, firstly for my PhD and then for my lectureship. So what I'm going to present today is actually something that I gained from my own PhD study. But now I also taught engineering students in CUHK. So later during the Q&A session, if you have any questions about teaching engineering students and about the possible challenges, you're always welcome to bring up any questions. Okay, so my topic is this. Sometimes I struggled integrating language and content in an academic literacy course for engineering students. So I'll be introducing what this course is, and I'll be also introducing some of the epistemologies embedded in the engineering community. Okay, so for me, my study starts with the introduction on the constructs of disciplinary literacy, and then I'll move on to why I'm using the CLIO, content and language integrated learning, as the framework to help me to see what's going on here. And also I'll be giving you more information about the methods, results, and also conclusions. Okay, so first of all, let's have a look at what a discipline is. So a discipline is, of course, something you have known, but then it underlies a kind of demarcation of philosophies, epistemologies, and also academic identities. So because of these boundaries, because of these demarcations, it actually influenced the pedagogical practices and also influenced the educational policies. So within the discipline, it is kind of like a very distinct discourse community where people use characteristic genres, where people share specific values or specific cultures, and where people might embrace distinct ideologies. Okay, so for language teachers, what we need to do with students is to help them with disciplinary literacy. So what are they? Well, first of all, of course, it includes linguistic proficiency. And of course, it also includes the students' capabilities for communicative practices within the academy. Okay, sorry for typo. And also within students also have to understand the epistemological and also social cultural context of the discourse community. Okay, and while we're helping students with their disciplinary literacy, we're also facing a world where there is increasing boundary crossing among heterogeneous communities. So this gives us thoughts that maybe one disciplinary literacy may not be enough. So probably students will need disciplinary literacies to help them to be able to survive, to be able to communicate within their future workplace settings, okay, or academic settings. So this kind of concept has kind of boomed an idea about on interdisciplinary teaching. So we know that there's some kind of integration, some kind of synthesis that draws upon more than just one discipline, okay, and that crosses conventional disciplinary boundaries. So to be able to see clearly what this kind of teaching will be about, I'm drawing on one of the branches underneath bilingualism, okay, which is CLIO. So because it proposes the dovetailing of language and also content. And then what's more important is that CLIO emphasizes disciplinary learning outcomes in addition to the objective of language learning. So it's not just about how language is performed, it's also about how language is used in disciplinary communities. So this is really important for me, that this idea would suffice here. And then of course, for CLIO to promote, to be used, an additional language, which is a foreign language or a lingua franca, is used as a vehicle to deliver the content knowledge. Okay, so in the context like Hong Kong, English is basically used as a lingua franca, particularly in the business settings, or particularly in the higher education settings. And then whether people argue that English is an whether Hong Kong is like an ESL or EFL setting, which is fine, but then English is basically used as a foreign language for people who don't use English a lot. So this is why I think English CLIO fits the Hong Kong context very well. And over the years, there have been different studies talking about the needs of this kind of interdisciplinary teaching. So for example, there are studies from Taiwan, there are also studies from Singapore, there are also studies from the US. This one is a bit special because it actually looks into the law students, the linguistic needs of law students. And the study concludes that to be able to submit linguistic capabilities of law students, they need more than just language itself. They also need to be able to aware of legal concepts as well as the legal culture. Okay, so these are the studies. And then another study is from Hong Kong. If you will, you can have a look. But all of these different studies suggest that this kind of English across disciplines or this kind of interdisciplinary teaching has been prevalent, okay, maybe throughout the years, but most of them actually focuses on students. Most of them actually focuses on the classroom settings. So what I want to do more is that basically we need to explore, I think it's still necessary for us to explore the language teachers' perspectives on how to incorporate disciplinary literacy into their practices. Okay, so this is why I think I can do something with this research. So the locus of this research, of course, is to explore a junior teacher's learning trajectory to teach an academic literacy course for year 4 engineering students. Okay, so when I use the word junior, that means what? This is actually when I was doing this study, this was actually the second year in his undergraduate teaching career. Okay, it was also the very first year, very first semester where he taught IEEE students. Okay, so this is why I put junior teacher there. And then I propose a research question here. What might be the core aspects of teaching for language teacher in an interdisciplinary teaching context? And I'm using the case study approach to explore, to investigate, okay, the multiplicity of perspective behind this context. Okay, so for my research context, well, let me give you more information. So this teacher participant is a local in Hong Kong, and his native language is Cantonese, but he has grown up in the English medium instruction environments, and he has a bachelor's degree in education and also 2 masters of arts. Okay, so and then this is a course called Technical English for EEE. So this is a course lasting for 12 weeks long, and then a couple of things that are required to do there. But what I'm emphasizing here is that there's an individual progress report that goes with students' capstone projects in their final year in the department. Okay, so this kind of model is called adjunct model, where language instruction is given to supplement students' content learning. So this course is provided to help them to write the progress reports, to present their findings and the progress of their capstone project. So this is how the context was like. And then for my research data, I have 2 interviews with the teacher. And then as you can see, I put semester 2 and 3. That is simply because of the availability of the teacher for an interview. So I actually conducted my research and also collected data, and I had classroom observations for 6 times in total. But then in semester 1 and semester 2, here I put semester 3 simply because he couldn't make it for an interview until the later time. Okay, so that is how the data was collected. And of course, there are some other more data, but then for this presentation, I only present the interview and classroom data. Okay, classroom observation data. Now, this is also something that adopted to help me to look into what's going on here. So factors influencing teacher beliefs about integration and their professional roles in CLIO. So there are 5 different factors there: culture, educational background, prior knowledge, teaching experience, and also the teacher's implicit assumptions, attitudes, and expectations. So this is one of the examples that I use. I mean, one of the set of research questions. I should say the first interview. So these are the questions there, and I connect those. I connect the different factor with the research question that I proposed. So as you can see, this is how I classify them on the basis of these 5 different factors, and then to be able to help me to generate my own findings. I use in vivo coding to come up with codes, and also second level coding to come up with the patterns. And also I use a little bit help from technology. I use MaxQDA to help me to consolidate and sort out all the possible patterns there. Okay, so this is how I did this study. So the research question here for your reference again. Now, let me show you those three core aspects of interdisciplinary teaching. So there are three of them: linguistic feedback, disciplinary knowledge, and also pedagogical constraints. So I'm going to present you data from both of the semesters that I observed, and then to show you what kind of considerations this teacher participant actually have revealed. So first of all, to look into the linguistic feedback. Now that we're language teachers, so we have to focus on students' linguistic improvement, right? So this is what this teacher said in the first interview. He said the instruction from the coordinator was that I only need to focus on certain textual features. Okay, so like whether students provided justifications in their progress reports, and whether they integrate the texts and also the visuals together. So for him, he said that these are not something related to the engineering topic itself, but these are all the different, very general skills, I would say, that are applicable to any kind of report. So when I was analyzing this excerpt, I feel like that when he was emphasizing general skills, he was mainly talking about students' lexical choices, grammatical features, linguistic styles. So these are the things that language teachers can do, right? Okay. And also when he said that these are applicable to any kind of report, still, I would say this kind of mindset still falls within the scope of general EAP. So not necessarily applicable to this kind of discipline specific context in the engineering community. Okay, so this is what happens in the first interview. But then for the second semester, like I show you here, observation data from second semester, there was a case where where the teacher was leading students to read a sample, and then he was asking them whether that's a good introduction and whether the introduction was effectively given. So one student answered the question, and then the teacher comments that maybe too much information unfolded. The focus is probably not right with the audience. Okay, so here I can kind of see that I kind of saw that the teacher was actually including the audience there. So, and then he asked students, so how can we make this more suitable for the technical audience? So it shows that in the second semester, he was a lot more sensitive to the needs, okay, of the general and also the technical audience. So his heightened sensitivity in crafting students' report writing in a more discourse specific way. Okay, So this is what I'm saying. He like what I shaded here in my observation data. Introduction should be both general and technical. Okay, so he was able to think about this, at least think about what students should do, and then he moved on to lead students to read something on their booklet, okay, on the course booklet, and then he commented that it might still be too general for students. Okay, so it shows that students' disciplinary needs are kind of ascribed to his own language instruction. So this is what I see, some of the differences there. Okay, and then the second thing is about disciplinary knowledge. Okay, so I want to see whether this teacher has actually shown the data better, okay, or has actually understood understood whether he needed to do something with his disciplinary knowledge. Okay, so this is the first interview. He said that I studied science in secondary school, so I kind of know some of the topics in that field. And I also took 2 science courses when I was an undergraduate. So this is what he said in the first interview. Okay, in the second interview, he said that in the A-level curriculum, things covered in the physics syllabus were more complex, more complicated. Okay, to give you more contextual information for the A-level curriculum, because Hong Kong has gone through some kind of curriculum reform a couple of years ago. So the entrance exam to college has transformed from the A-level curriculum to something what they call in preparation for DSE. Okay, so according to him, a local, he said that actually the difficulty level for A-level courses are a lot higher than the courses for the DSE preparation. So he said he kind of thought that in his physics course that he has actually picked up quite a lot already. Okay, so here it gives me the sense that how did he actually make sense of disciplinary knowledge in engineering? Well, he was able to use his secondary or undergraduate scientific knowledge. Okay, so first of all, it shows that by using this kind of scientific knowledge that he gained before, he actually have achieved some kind of level of affinity for and also connection with his engineering students because he tried to understand them better. Okay, and then also you can also see that his personal biographical exploration and also his personal learning experience did help shape a language teacher's instruction. So in this kind of discipline-specific context, his former exposure to the scientific knowledge also helps immensely. Okay, and then for his further understanding of those engineering topics, well, it was interesting because he tried to start that. He tried to improve that. I should say improve that on the basis of his interest. So he said that in the first interview, his learning comes from the more interesting type of projects. Okay, so for example, he learned something about chatbot. And then he said, actually, because this topic of one particular student in his course, then he attended a very simple chatbot building workshop. So this might be quite rare for language teachers to do so, to be specific here in the in Hong Kong context. And then he was also able to talk to that student about what platform that he used. Okay, and then also about the different functions that the student planned to achieve or include. And then that student actually bought in his advice, and that student wanted to develop further. Okay, so it shows us that he was actually having some kind of self-initiated learning. Okay, and then when he was able to talk about what platform and also what function, and then even suggest students how to make it better, we can kind of see that he incorporated a kind of diagnostic or a design type of thinking, which is actually very important in the engineering epistemology, because they emphasize this kind of design thinking to see what might be wrong and then to see how those problems could be fixed. So this kind of diagnostic or design thinking actually resonates with what the engineering people would do in their own field. Okay, and then you will also see that he was able to unite his new disciplinary learning with students' needs. Okay, so this is the first thing. And then in the second interview, when I asked him, so how did he really distinguish the differences of triple E students and also some students from other sub-disciplines of engineering? So he actually gave his thought without hesitation. He said that, I think electrical engineering deals with very technical things, but computer science more interdisciplinary, and it can be something related to linguistics. And then I think if they want to build a corpus, they may make sense of some algorithm type of things. So what's interesting is that in the second semester where I observed, he was introducing corpus, but then he was also able to tell students how the corpus was compiled. So he was using those kind of engineering knowledge to help students to understand the ideas better. Okay, so in this case, in other observations that I found, I think that he extended his existing scientific knowledge and also expanded his cognitive capacity. Okay, so this is another result here. And for example, in the third result, well, I kind of found that he was able to establish relevance with students' disciplines. So this is one of the excerpts from the observation scheme. It shows that there are 11 incidences within 2 hours where he actually tried to establish the connection with students' discipline. Okay, so he was able to do that in the second semester. And then, for example, when they're talking about citation, he actually brought up the importance of IEEE citation recitation style because he told students with an emphatic tone, he said, you speak the engineer language, so you need to use the IEEE citation style whenever he was introducing them. Also, he was able to encourage students to use the diagrams a lot better because diagrams are actually part of the so-called disciplinary literacies. So he was able to encourage students to do that. Okay, so why did I put this here, pedagogical constraints? Because he said this in the first interview, and also he said something in the second interview showing that he was unable to still do something there. So for example, student projects are mostly formula, okay, computer codes. So he had a hard time making sense of, okay. So he said, something too technical for him, he would just ignore them. Okay, he would just ignore them. And then for the second interview, he also mentioned something about justification. So in the beginning of the beginning of my results, I mentioned that he knew that he needed to help students with their justification. Okay, so he knew that helping students to justify different engineering choices. But sometimes I struggled because I didn't know whether or not something needed to be justified. So again, he had this kind of pedagogical constraints in his own teaching. Okay, so let me quickly come down to my conclusion. So these are the factors that I kind of based my research on to look into what is going on here in this context. So behind the idea, sometimes I struggled. We kind of see that a language teacher should be more aware of the epistemological understanding of this discipline that the language teacher is targeting, okay? And then we also see there are also challenges facing language teachers teaching English for scientific and knowledge and technology. So for example, they still need to teach students with genres of lexical, grammatical features, but somehow they also needed to be able to look into the values of the disciplinary contexts. Okay, so like I said, the teacher should also be the teacher should also be more equipped with the disciplinary literacies so that they can really help students boost that. Okay, and we also see that interdisciplinary teaching is not dependent upon one fragmented discrete discipline. So so his background knowledge in language or language teaching may not be enough. That this is why in the second semester he was learning a bit more about engineering disciplines. Okay, and then of course this study also shows that a teacher should be able to display his self-initiated nature to be able to keep on his own learning. Okay, he keep on his own development, and then all the teachers are still students of their own students. All the teachers still are learners of their practices. So this is how this language teacher in my research have been trying so hard to develop himself. I mean, disciplinarily and also linguistically and also pedagogically. I think I've come down to the end of my presentation. So these are the references I used. So thank you so much for your time to watch this video. And of course, if you have any questions, you're welcome to raise your questions during the Q&A session that follows. Okay, once again, thank you so much. Thank you.